open your eyes fully to see, okay, there is that imprint there. We out here with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. And yeah, I do have my soundboard. Stepping it up these days. Today's reflection is about going back, not stepping it up, but going back to the beginning of our lives, going back to the beginning of us, our essence, you could say. And this goes back to the subtle body of how we're described, who we are, how we navigate the world within this philosophy of Vedanta. And this term comes up quite often, Vasanas. That is our essence. And it actually is Sanskrit for fragrance. It is this almost ephemeral, the most subtle essence of who we are. Then all of this is just an expression of your house, your career. Well, if you're an adult, your house, your career, your car, your clothes, your preferences for coffee or tea. Do you work late into the evening? You wake up early. These are your vasanas, we're told. And a lot of times it is just negotiating life with these essential parts of ourselves. Negotiating life with our preferences for the now, for what might be better for us in the future. And it's the work we're constantly doing within our heads of negotiating between the intellect and the mind, what we want now versus what we want later, and finding a nice balance between the two. And why is it relevant to think about these essential aspects of ourselves in our daily life? It's helpful because when we recognize these are imprints, another way that you could describe our essential vasanas, you describe them as our most fundamental imprints. It's helpful because it helps us recognize, oh, that's an imprint that I have that right now I could overcome. But it is an imprint that I have and a natural tendency that I'm just built with. Like a baby duck, the second it's born, the first figure it sees, the first duck-like figure it sees, boom, it has an imprint. That's mom. That's mother duck. That's who I'm going to follow around. It's a imprint within their minds, within their behavior, that impacts all of this subsequent behavior for a time. Till it says, you know what, it's no longer necessary to follow this figure around. When we think about our lesser selves, our lesser natures, aspects and qualities of ourselves that we find ignoble or dishonorable, unhelpful, unhealthy, I find it helpful to remember these are imprints and they might have some use for some time. They might be there because of some very natural aspect of the way things used to be. But now it's time to overcome those imprints, or to recognize that those imprints, well, they might always be there, but it's just an imprint. The desire for the other sex, that might just be an imprint you have, where you recognize, oh yeah, this makes sense. Baby duck style, it's in my mind, imprinted in my mind. But when we think about it from that lens, it's no longer this massive cosmic universal force pushing you to be distracted by every one of the opposite sex that you see. It can actually help you recognize, like, oh yeah, that's my lesser nature and tendency. That is an imprint that is operating on some level that, well, it might be time to outgrow, or that's a childish imprint that I no longer need and it no longer serves me. It could be an addiction. in some biological reason that had some value to you at some point. That imprint might be there for you to have that tendency when you come across certain things, people, substances. But I find it so helpful to recognize and codify it as an imprint. Something imprinted within me that is a tendency that is actually pretty easy to overcome given all the other imprints in my life that now don't control or govern my behavior. This philosophy is all about realism, seeing what's really there and trying to delude ourselves from seeing something that is there will never serve us well. And it's actually the opposite direction. Instead of trying to squint and add the blindfold, take it away and open our eyes clearly, that is the only path forward, as they say in Stoicism, the obstacle is the way. Open your eyes fully to see, okay, there is that imprint there. Much like the dozens or so other imprints that I have in my life. The dozens that I've already overcome that no longer govern my behavior or have a hold over me. And this is just one of those. To recognize the weakness, the tendency, that essential imprint, to codify as an imprint, to see it clearly, to look directly at it until it dissolves. We are told by this philosophy is far more powerful than repression, suppression, ignorance, and trying to look away. And that is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.